Hello! Today I want to talk about The Witches, the film and the book. Actually, more specifically, the 2020 film adaptation and some parts of the book. I'm coming at this from both a disability perspective and a pagan one. Roald Dahl's book, The Witches, came out in 1983. To sum up the plot very quickly, a young boy and his witch-hunting grandmother need to hunt and stop these child-hating witches from executing a big scheme to kill children. This plot in general hasn't really generated that much controversy. There are claims that the portrayal of the witches are misogynistic, but I will get into that later. But nevertheless, this book got into the top 100 children's novels in the US. The controversy mainly lies with the 2020 film adaptation, in which the witches are portrayed as women with disabilities, and those are the marker of evil. Can we already see why this is a problem? In the original book, the witches were portrayed as looking like ordinary women, but there were some tells that gave away that they were a witch. These included baldness, square feet, big noses to sniff out children, blue saliva that they used as ink, and long fingernails that they disguised with gloves. They hid the baldness with wigs, they hid the nails with the aforementioned gloves, and they hid the feet by wearing pointed shoes. But why the limb differences? Why is that necessary? Both the square feet in the book and the ectrodactyly in the film portray these limb differences as a signifier of evil witches. The use of baldness to portray the witches also portrays human beings with hair loss, as evil witches. And although Warner Brothers released a statement saying that these were works of fiction, villain coding like this has real-world consequences. This level of ableism that uses our traits to be signifiers of evil and villain, because who would want to be a villain, is just unacceptable. Young children, which this film is arguably aimed at, it is based on a children's book, a children's novel, and the rating of it is parental guidance, but it is therefore suitable for some children and aimed towards the children. Adults might watch it too, but that's not the point. These young children don't have the filter to stop themselves looking at a disabled person in the street who might have hair loss, they might have a limb difference, and say, "Look, mummy, a witch." And as adults making this film in 2020, you have to be aware of that. Just by stating it's a work of fiction does not absolve anybody of the consequences, because Warner Brothers are not the one facing these consequences. It's disabled people. It's people with hair loss, it's people with limb differences. It is up to the filmmakers to ensure that they are not causing harm by portraying real human traits as villainous and evil and undesirable, and to not teach ableism or queerphobia or transphobia through villain coding. I'm calling it villain coding because there are other words used for specific types of discrimination, so queer coding, that sort of thing. I'm just going to call it villain coding because this topic has layers. So this film undoubtedly perpetuates bias against disabled people, but also witches. Warner Brothers said in their statement, and I quote, "It was never the intention for viewers to feel that the fantastical, non-human creatures were meant to represent them. But witches are human." I can already hear the argument now that these are fictional witches, but the same people that are going to cry out, "But these are fictional witches," are the ones that, when I was in school, would follow me down the corridor saying, "Burn the witch!" The term witches is a term for humans. Humans use this term. Calling witches non-human erases every human that is a witch or is a pagan or follows the craft, because some of these terms are interchangeable, and some people who might not call themselves a witch will still be affected by the bias that this movie perpetuates. It implies that all witches are fictional, which, hello, we are not. We're very much real, and we're very much not evil. when I introduce myself as a pagan or a witch, particularly to younger people, I find them asking me about the stereotypes that this film portrays witches to be. And I don't mean, how do you feel about films portraying you this way? No, it's, do you hate children? Do you eat children? Do you eat babies? Can you turn me into a frog? Can you turn me into a mouse? Are you going to curse me? We have articles written about us in media outlets like The Sun, which further perpetuate this bias and discrimination. If you would like to hear more about that, I will put a card up here to me reacting to an article by The Sun. These witches are fictional characters based on real people. And the demonisation of witches comes from very, very early Christianity. Anti-pagan laws came in very shortly after the rise of Christianity in the year 380, when Christianity became the Church of the Roman Empire. Thus, witchcraft became an accusation worthy of death. They picked traits that they deemed the most undesirable to demonise us. They would pick on disabled babies. Babies born with limb differences were accused of being a witch and killed shortly after birth. If you can't see why that's ableist, then I need to make another video. Please let me know in the comments below, and while you're there, don't forget to like this video. While they were picking their least desired traits, just like that, a quintessential image of a witch was born. This quintessential mental image of a witch became an elderly woman who perhaps walked hunched over with a stick, because who would want to walk hunched over with a stick? She may have had a large hooked nose, which I think actually stems from anti-Semitism more than the demonisation of witches, but that's not my lane, but definitely something to be aware of. These witches were usually portrayed to be unmarried, if not queer, which obviously being queer is the only reason you would be unmarried, and both of those things are undesirable. And then things like warts and scars, which actually carries a lot of similarities to our crones. So in Wicca particularly, we have 3 phases of life. There is the maiden, the mother, and the crone. I won't go too much into this now, but the maiden is all about growth and learning, the mother is about fertility and birth, and then the crone is more about wisdom and death. We see the crones as elders. And you know that saying, respect your elders? Ours are being constantly disrespected by the entire media industry when we portray witches, evil witch villains, as our wise elders. Do you disrespect your own elders like that? And back to the misogyny real quick. Why is the quintessential image of a witch always female? Why are there no men? Why do the male witches get rebranded as things like wizards and warlocks, but they're not demonised in the same way that witches are? Can I trust you to do the math on that? As I've already alluded to, I have been bullied and I have been harassed just for being a pagan, which is wholly down to the media's representation of us. The image that is portrayed by films and books like The Witches directly leads to harassment of real life humans who are witches and pagans. It's in part why I call myself a pagan and not a witch, because as soon as I say I'm a witch, there is the jokes. If I say I'm a pagan, people are more likely to have an open discussion about it. And I shouldn't have to do that. So maybe we should stop demonising witches, and maybe we should stop using the traits of disabled people to signify evil. Witches and disabled people are not evil. And I hope you've learned something today. This feels really weird now, but don't forget to like this video. Drop a comment down below if you want to have a discussion about this further. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I make content about disability, chronic illness, paganism, queer stuff, death stuff. I'm going to be doing Vlogmas in December, so that's 25 videos in 25 days, so make sure that you have rung that notification bell so you get notified every single time I post a new video. Ordinarily videos go up every Saturday at 6 PM UK time, with at least one bonus video every single month, apart from the aforementioned Vlogmas. See ya!